Do you ever feel like no matter how much you give, you're still somehow the problem? You wake up early, work long hours, hold everything together, and still get met with silence or blame. You walk into a home you're breaking yourself to provide for, and it feels like you don't belong in it. You try to speak, but the words get stuck because every time you open your mouth, the rules change. And part of you wonders if love was ever really about you, or just what you could do. There's a silence most men carry that has nothing to do with peace. It's the silence that lives between what you give and what you get, between showing up every day and feeling like you've still somehow failed. You feel it in small, invisible moments, like when she walks past you without a glance, or when you speak and her face stays flat, her eyes somewhere else, like you're an appliance, functioning, dependable, forgettable. You tell yourself it's stress, a phase. But deep down, you know what's happening. You're not being met, you're being managed. And your worth is now measured by how much you produce, not how much you feel. But you still show up, because that's what you were taught a man does. He provides, he endures, he swallows disappointment and calls it maturity. You were raised on that blueprint, maybe by a father who didn't ask how you felt, just if you were doing your job. Or by a mother who taught you love must be earned, not received. Either way, you learned early that your value lies in what you can offer, not who you are. So you became a giver, a doer, the man who fixes, funds, forgives. And now here you are, successful, exhausted, quietly resentful, and still wondering, why do I feel like the villain in my own home? You're not a bad man. You're just breaking under the weight of an unspoken contract, one where your needs were never part of the agreement. And that's what no one ever told you, that love, when weaponized, doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks like expectation without intimacy, like gratitude that never arrives, like affection that's always just out of reach, until you give more. But you keep giving, because to stop would feel like failure, not just as a partner, but as a man. And so you endure. You lower your standards. You quiet your voice. You keep the peace. And a little more of yourself disappears every time you do. This is where the story starts to fall apart. Not the one you've been living, but the one you've been told. That men are the strong ones. That women are the kind ones. That harm only flows one direction. That if you feel unloved, unappreciated, unseen, it must be because you're failing. Not because something's wrong with the dynamic, but because something's wrong with you. That's the lie. And it's been fed to you by a culture that has no language for your pain. Christina Hoff Sommers called this selective empathy, a system that rushes to validate female wounds while leaving male wounds to rot in silence. She warned that we live in a time where female harm is explained and male harm is erased. So when you're criticized every day and told it's emotional honesty, when your needs are dismissed and it's called boundaries, when you feel controlled but it's cloaked in concern, you question yourself, not her, because no one ever gave you permission to name what's happening. No one told you that abuse could look like silence, that it could sound like sarcasm, that it could wear the mask of concern while eroding your identity, one correction at a time. You were taught to look for raised voices and bruises, not for passive aggression, emotional coldness, or the slow disappearance of your self-worth. And that's the brilliance of the trap. If she never yells, if she never hits, you tell yourself it's not that bad. You excuse it, you rationalize. She's just tired. She's stressed. I can handle it. But here's the truth. You're not in love. You're in compliance. You've learned to shrink yourself so well that now it feels like virtue. And no one around you questions it because they've all bought into the same story, that if a woman is cold, you must have deserved it. That if a man is in pain, he must be weak. that a woman's behavior must always be explained, and a man's must always be judged. But pain doesn't lie. And somewhere inside, you already know. You're not being loved. You're being used. To understand what's happening to you, you have to step outside the relationship, not physically, but conceptually. Because this isn't just about her. This is about a framework you were born into, a cultural lens that shaped everything you think you know about love, gender, and power. And at the center of that lens is a myth. The myth that women are morally superior, that they're nurturing by nature, emotionally wise, gentle by default. And because of that, when a woman causes harm, we look for reasons. But when a man causes harm, we look for fault. This is what Christina Hoff Sommers called moral asymmetry, the idea that we judge men by ethical standards, but explain women through emotional context. He's abusive. She's overwhelmed. He's manipulative. She's healing. He needs to be held accountable. She needs to be understood. And this asymmetry has consequences, deep, private, devastating ones. Because it means that when a man suffers in a relationship, his suffering doesn't count. Not really. It doesn't come with language. It doesn't come with empathy. It comes with silence, shame, and sometimes laughter. Think about how abuse is portrayed in media. The controlling wife, the nagging partner, the woman who mocks, belittles, manipulates. It's comedy. It's a meme. It's normalized. But switch the genders, and it becomes a crisis. And here's the tragedy. Because you've been absorbing this bias your entire life, you don't even know you're in pain until you break. You assume the exhaustion is just part of being a man. You assume the coldness is your fault. You assume the guilt is deserved. Because the system trained you to doubt your own emotional experience. This is called internalized invalidation. The quiet programming that teaches men their pain isn't real unless it's physical, unless it's dramatic, unless it bleeds. But emotional abuse isn't always loud. Sometimes it's persistent redefinition, where your intentions are twisted, your words repurposed, your reactions weaponized against you. Sometimes it's selective affection, where love becomes a reward for obedience, not a reflection of who you are. And sometimes it's the simple, soul-cutting fact that no one sees it. Not your friends, not your family, not even you, until you're a ghost in your own life. And this is where Sommers' warning hits hardest. She said, "When we excuse women from moral scrutiny, we don't just blind ourselves to the harm they can cause. We deny men the right to name what's happening to them. And if a man can't name his pain, he can't process it. And if he can't process it, he will repeat it, or worse, pass it on." So this isn't about blame. This is about sight. To say clearly, some harm is not just emotional miscommunication, it's emotional engineering. Some relationships are not just demanding, they are designed to drain. And some women, just like some men, learn how to use love as leverage, guilt as glue, and silence as strategy. This doesn't mean women are bad. It means they're human, and just as capable of control, manipulation, and self-protection at someone else's expense. Until we accept that, we will keep leaving men in the dark. And worse, we will keep teaching them that staying in the dark is what makes them good. You think you're staying for love, but look closer. You're staying because leaving would mean admitting something deeper, that you've built your identity around being useful, that your worth has always been tied to what you can offer, not who you are. That somewhere back there, before this relationship, before this home, before the fatigue set in, you were already being trained to disappear. This didn't start with her. It started when you were still small, still soft, still unformed. When your first experience of affection came laced with conditions. When your sadness was too much for the people you depended on. When your anger made them withdraw. when your joy was celebrated only when it was convenient. So you became manageable. You learned how to keep others comfortable, even if it meant living in discomfort yourself. You learned to downplay your hunger, to apologize for your feelings, to become so emotionally competent that no one ever had to take care of you. That's how you became the man they call dependable, the strong one, the solid one, the one who never breaks down, the one who's always there. But you weren't being strong, you were being acceptable, and now here you are, still playing the same role, still trying to earn love by enduring, still measuring your goodness by how much bullshit you can absorb without complaint. And the worst part, you've played the role so well, even you believe it. You defend her behavior, you minimize your pain, you call it stress, you call it a rough patch. You tell yourself this is just what relationships are. But relationships aren't supposed to feel like emotional debt. They aren't supposed to feel like you're always one mistake away from being discarded. They aren't supposed to drain you down to the husk and then call it partnership. So why do you stay? Because leaving would mean confronting the truth you've spent your whole life avoiding. That love has always felt like a performance. And if you stop performing, you're afraid no one will choose you. That's the wound. The wound beneath all the logic, all the patience, all the overfunctioning. It's the terror that your needs make you unlovable, that your voice makes you difficult, that your boundaries make you selfish, so you sacrifice quietly. You give more when she withdraws. You apologize when you're the one hurting. You offer calmness when what you really feel is grief. And the irony is, the more generous you are, the more invisible you become. She doesn't see your pain because you don't show it, and you don't show it because somewhere along the way, you were taught that being seen leads to being shamed. So you lock the doors inside your own body, inside your own home, inside your own mind. And then you call that manhood. You tell yourself that's what being strong looks like. But it's not strength if it's eating you alive. And it's not love if it requires your silence. So here's the mirror, clear and unflinching. You're not staying because of loyalty. You're staying because of programming. You're not enduring because of strength. You're enduring because part of you still believes that self-abandonment is noble. It's not. It's familiar. And familiar is not the same as safe. There is nothing noble about disappearing in service of someone who refuses to see you. And if you're afraid to speak, to leave, to name the truth, it's not because you're weak, it's because you've been taught that your pain is a threat, that your voice is disruption, that your worth depends on staying silent. But here, now, in this moment, you don't have to be the good man. You don't have to be the calm one. You don't have to carry her chaos just to prove you're whole. You only have to be honest. And that begins with one quiet realization. You deserve a life that doesn't require your disappearance. You didn't notice it at first, because it didn't arrive like a break. It came like a slow leak. A moment here, a comment there, the affection pulled back just a little bit, the gratitude delayed just a little longer, and you told yourself it was stress. A bad week, a rough month. But now all these small absences have added up. And what you're left with isn't a relationship, it's a transaction. One where you give endlessly and receive just enough to keep hoping. That's what makes this so hard to leave. Not the pain, the hope. The hope that maybe if you give it a little more time, maybe if you stop complaining, maybe if you become even more patient, more generous, more understanding, she'll finally change. She'll finally soften. She'll finally see you. But deep down, some part of you knows you've already been replaced, not with another man, but with a role. She doesn't need you. She needs your output, your labor, your reliability, and she's trained you well, rewarding your sacrifices with small moments of closeness, brief flashes of warmth, just enough to keep you in the loop, just enough to confuse your nervous system into believing love still lives here. But love isn't what this is. Love doesn't make you afraid to speak. Love doesn't train you to question your memory, your motives, your masculinity. Love doesn't punish you for needing something back. You've been told to keep going, to be the man, to carry the load, to protect her from the chaos, never noticing how much of that chaos she created. And still you stayed, not because you're weak, but because you've spent your entire life trying to earn what should have been given freely. Love, respect, safety, permission to exist as you are. That's the core of it, isn't it? You've never actually believed you were worthy unless you were proving something. So you proved. You worked harder, gave more, held in the anger, told yourself that to stay calm was noble, that to stay silent was strength, that to suffer quietly was manhood. But here's what you're starting to understand. You weren't made to live in a house where your presence feels like a burden. You weren't born to barter your peace for proximity. You weren't built to earn your worth through emotional labor. You are not her project. You are not her punching bag. You are not her pawn. And for the first time, you're beginning to say it, not with shouting, not with drama, but with a quiet, steady truth that doesn't need to be proven. I deserve to be met, fully, or not at all. You're not asking to be worshipped. You're not demanding comfort at someone else's expense. You're simply remembering that love, real love, does not require you to disappear. You're beginning to see the difference between compromise and control, between care and compliance, between intimacy and obligation. And now the question is no longer, can I make this work? The question is, what part of me have I betrayed in order to stay? Because that's what this is about now. Not her, not even the relationship, but the man inside you, the one you've kept quiet for years, the one who feels things too deeply, the one who needs more than duty, the one who wants to rest, to breathe, to be held without earning it. He's still there, and he's tired of waiting for permission. You were not born to be tolerated. You were not built to carry the weight of two people's emotions, two people's expectations, and still be asked why you're tired. You are not here to fund someone else's comfort with your silence. You are not here to trade your aliveness for acceptance. And maybe no one ever told you that before. Maybe every voice you grew up with only taught you how to earn approval, not how to feel safe in your own body. Maybe every relationship you've been in has asked you to be less emotional, less opinionated, less human. Maybe you've confused being the strong one with being the one who disappears first. But let's be clear, strength is not silence. Love is not obedience. And masculinity is not measured by how much pain you can bury. You don't need to scream to reclaim your life. You don't need her permission to stop bleeding for a relationship that's built on extraction. You don't need to wait for her to change in order to remember who you are. Because that man, the one you used to be before all this, he's still in there. Before the compromise, before the compliance, before you started asking if your needs were a burden. He remembers what it feels like to laugh without flinching, to speak without apology, to love without keeping score. He's been watching, waiting, not for her, for you, for the moment you'd stop mistaking exhaustion for intimacy, for the moment you'd stop negotiating with ghosts, for the moment you'd finally say what no one ever gave you the words to say, I am not your function, I am not your fix, I am not here to be used. And from that moment forward, everything begins to change. Because now you're not surviving someone else's dysfunction. You're remembering your own value. You are not a workhorse. You are not a bank account. You are not a punching bag made of patience. You are a man, worthy of respect, worthy of rest, worthy of love that doesn't arrive with a receipt attached. And if no one has ever said that to you before, let this be the first time you finally believe it. No more waiting, no more apologizing, no more asking for permission to feel. Your life is yours again. Take it back. quietly, completely, and without shame.